Alrighty.
Okay, so as the host of this Zoom meeting, Mel, do you want to get the ball rolling?
I mean, sure. This is going to be, I guess, episode one of the podcast. Since Ethat's not here, we'll go ahead and just make this the first podcast episode if you'd like. But I want everybody to kind of like introduce themselves and like tell us how you got started in voice and what your specialties are, what you want to learn, your goals, all that good stuff.
All right, who will get the ball rolling? Is it Mel again or one of us?
You guys can go first.
All right, then maybe I'll go first then, as
Alright.
the least TikTok famous of all the people here. Just kidding. Yeah. So my name's Wise. I am a voice teacher, and I just finished the voice teacher training from Justin Stoney, as I think Mel has as well. And for me, my journey started off with originally I couldn't sing in tune at all. I was one of those people where people would laugh at me at the side. I actually was in my church choir, but that they allow anyone in because you're singing for Jesus. You're not singing for performance. Our performances were called presentations. If that wasn't clear. So and for me it's like there would be a guy next to me and I would sing and then he would be trying to sing the harmony, the tenor part, and he'd be doing this on his ear. And I'd be like, oh, is that because I'm off tune or something and you can't hear yourself? Then he's like, no, I just need to hear myself a little better. Then I'm like, I don't know about that, but yeah. And then after a while, they actually made us do auditions for the choir. Not really like to let people in because I was already in, but it was more like they said we wanted to make sure that everyone's in the right voice part. So in my audition, I had like the choir master person there playing the scales, and I was singing, and then my friends were on the left side, and they're all like laughing. I didn't know why. Yeah, and when I would sing in the bathroom, I would be singing like all that stuff, and then I did not sound like that. I sounded like I presume, and it was probably not even on pitch. And my mom would be like, "Shut up!" So yeah, so and yeah, it was like singing around people. For me, I was kind of thick-skinned, I guess. What people were saying, I think one person asked me, "Hey, yeah, no," I was like, "Yeah, do you remember that Justice League song?" Then I sang. I can't remember what it was. Then he was like, "No, maybe you're just singing it off tune, and I can't recognize it." So yeah, that was my starting point, and I I got started kind of hearing. We had a guy in my school who was the leader, the CCA leader we call him of choir in my school, and he was a bass and a soprano at the same time. So it was like so I heard his voice and he was all like, yeah, the crown jewel of singing is the vibrato, and you'll get it when you get like good supporters. I've learned since that that's all not really true, but like at the time I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna sing with my shoulders not moving, whatever. So those were my first steps, shrieking to Vitas's opera 2, whatever, probably not in tune. And eventually I listened to Adam Lambert. I think my cousin was into singing, and we were both kind of learning. So he would always sing this raspy falsetto thing. Fun fact: we are working together now. Uh, but yeah, he would do. We would sing, and he would sing a song for me, and I would kind of tell him, "Hey, that doesn't sound like the same key as the original song." Or I didn't know what a key was, but I would say that didn't sound the same. And what I eventually did was I got fed up of not being able to sing in tune, so I went to memorize all the 12 pitches on the piano, and so I developed a sort of a cheater's perfect pitch or a party trick perfect pitch, where if you give me one note, I can tell you what note it is. I don't know if Wira can play a note right now, and let's test it out. Uh,
All right,
yeah.
let's try it.
What? A flat. Yeah.
Yeah,
A flat. Four, I guess. I guess it's four. I think it's four.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What? How the heck?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that, and yeah. So that took a year of hard work, and examining the sheet music of Phantom of the Opera, the da da, that gave me like five or six notes. And then after that, learning a pop song with each of the notes in them and memorizing those. And yeah, and then I my in my mind that took more than a year, but when I think about the timeline, it probably took a few months actually. So and eventually people were in my choir were like, okay, now you're the human piano. So, but at the, okay, it was kind of something like that. But, and then after that, I would say that's not something anyone needs to do. But then after that, I was learning from different courses online on YouTube and, finding things and singing to YouTube videos, courses, whatever I could get my hands on. I didn't know what I was doing, but they were all like, "Yeah, if you don't use your chest voice, your vocal cords are gonna atrophy, and then you'll lose it." So I was like, "Yeah," all the time, and um, and I guess I was accidentally doing distortions because if you sing like that, you're probably gonna get some on accident, and yeah, and then I tried to join my school choir. I sang Happy Birthday out of tune. I did not get in. I don't know the timeline. The timeline's all mixed up. So that was probably before I figured out the tuning thing. And eventually, what's it called? Eventually, I joined Army, won a few karaoke competitions in there. And after that, when I got to university, I joined a choir, my university's choir, Singapore Management University. And they allow really anyone in because it's as long as you kind of hold a tune, and I had reached that stage, and I learned a lot while I was there, and we won a competition, and not one, we got gold for competition in Austria and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And then I tried singing covers on YouTube, Japanese songs and stuff, and I realized it's a completely different ball game, singing solo, singing choir and all that. And to be fair, my choir singing wasn't even very confident, not very good at the time. But I was learning and learning and learning, just learning through baptism by fire. Eventually, I got to the point where I don't know. At one point, after I took a break from stuff, because I was a lawyer and whatever that happened, and had a competition. While I was a lawyer, decided to quit. Now I'm an IT guy at the same time, and eventually, I found this book called Practical Vocal Acoustics, which is by Ken Bozeman, which is about singing and stuff. And my brother said that's the Bible of modern vocal pedagogy. And I actually had seen that book a few years before, and I had no idea what was going on. And now, after many years, this is I don't know, 10 years later or something, I had enough background knowledge to understand what was going on. And that kind of started my rabbit hole of vocal science. I just kept reading and reading and reading and trying it with my own voice, and I realized that the progress I made from reading those books and trying it out was much faster than any of the courses I did, any just singing, bashing through, and not knowing why my voice was okay on one day and not okay on another. And then I think I came across Justin's course eventually, and I decided to take a leap of faith and try it out. And yeah, I didn't regret that, and now I'm starting my voice teacher journey. And besides teaching people in my choir technique stuff as well, yeah, now I'm teaching actual students who are not people that I knew. So yeah, and I think that's been pretty fun. I'm sorry that took so long, but yeah, that is my story. I don't know about life story, but that is my story.
Yay! That's awesome, dude. I'm so glad you were able to like you have more studies than I do with all those books. Like literally, I think the only books I currently have for pedagogy are Justin's book and then David McCall's book, Your Voice. That's it. So you're already leaps ahead of me as far as book studies go. And of course I took Justin's course too. But that's awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
Wira, you want to go next? You want to share your story?
All right, sure, yeah. Being the most junior out of all of you, whoops. Oh, that's not enough. But yes, I am the only one here who hasn't taken the voice teacher training. I will next month. This is exciting. Yeah. But yes, hi, I am Wira G. Call me Wira. And I'm a TikTok vocal coach and an influencer. Oh my god. Oh god. But yeah, so my singing journey didn't start long ago, I would say. I've always been a musical kid. Yes, I've always been able to carry a tune because I learned piano as a kid. So there's that. But of course, voice technique-wise, I was just crap. But it all started when me and a friend of mine just threw ourselves into the deep waters and performed in our high school's annual concert. And I couldn't sing. This person could already sing. And they taught me, basically gave my first voice lesson. They were like, okay, do this. Ma, 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 ma. I can't even do that. I was like, ma, 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 shaking all the way. But whatever, we went for it. And that's where it really started. So then the school had a musical production. It was on The Addams Family. I auditioned and I got the lead role. So that was like, whoa, cool. But then the coronavirus hit, and so we all had to do that online. And so, yeah, by that time I was already like immersing myself in NYVC. I started my journey with NYVC. I saw Justin's voice lessons to the world, and I just started practicing all that. And yeah, so that's where my voice journey really kicked off. I learned how to vibrato and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it was COVID, so it was pretty tough to do all the things. Like, we were doing online rehearsals. Imagine like acting through camera, like interacting with your co-stars through the camera. It's so weird. So I ended up teaching, or like giving some voice tips to them because it was an online musical or whatever, and I noticed that my stars had to do some work, like could use some tips with the voice, and so I started giving them tips, and the music director saw me doing it, and she's like, I think you should be our like voice coach because we don't have one. And so I was tasked to give voice lessons to my fellow cast members, and I just found that funner than the acting. Maybe it's because it's online, but I just found the voice teaching so fun. And that really is when it kicked off my passion for teaching. And fast forward to a couple of years, it was, I think, earlier last year when I just took it to the online world. I made a profile on Fiverr. It was like $5 per lesson. That's where I started. And people kept coming. And then this year I started the TikTok and expanded it even more. And now I'm, yeah, more than happy giving voice lessons to people all over the world. And yeah, that's it. And I also just found mixed voice like recently. That's great. Like, I've been so stuck in baritone land because I was Mr. Baritone. So there's that. And yeah, but teaching wise, that's how it's my journey. The story of Wira G, which just began.
I just like to say, like, it really, besides the fact that you give off Justin vibes whenever you teach, I think anyone who's seen Justin teach will attest to that. Your journey sounds very similar as well, because he started off as a musical theater. He wanted to go into musical theater acting and stuff, and then he saw, oh wait, then he had to, by circumstance, teach people, and then someone was like, hey, you could be a voice teacher, and he was like, huh, yeah, how about that? And then that's where it continued. I mean, there was no COVID and there was no online teaching at the time, but I think it's kind of cool how destiny takes us through life in very similar paths.
It is pretty similar. Teaching voices, it's something that I never expected myself to do. I've always thought okay, never mind. Yeah, I always thought I love performing, and I still perform. But I don't know, man. There's just something about teaching, seeing miracles happen in people. It's like,
it's very fulfilling to like help your student like hit a high note that they never hit before, or just find a nice balance like mix, or like anything like that at all. It's just very fulfilling to see them like grasp a concept and then be like, yeah, you did the thing! Like, you totally did! And like just get excited for them. It's like really fun to do that. So yeah, and I'm really glad that you are here because you're really fun to talk to, and yeah, you definitely have like a huge Justin like piece in your teaching.
Really?
Yes,
Maybe, okay,
yeah. You do though, seriously.
More than a bit, yes.
just a bit. But it's great because it makes you a really good voice teacher, and you kind of are anyway. And you got a great ear, and you got great technique, and you build some awesome exercises I wouldn't even know how to begin, which is weird because you haven't even taken the teacher training yet. So like the fact that you're building all these.
It's a lot of NYVC stuff, and I just changed it a bit, like change the pattern, and make it easier. Because some of Justin's exercises are just way too hard for beginners.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take that, but I'm just gonna go, thank you very much. And I just make it.
Yeah, but it's cool because you have it, like, once you get access to, like, what all the consonants, all the fricatives, all the plosives, all the vowels do, you're gonna be, like, making insane exercises, and it'd be so cool to see that. I'm so excited for you. But thank you for sharing that, because that's awesome.
Yeah,
really cool.
alright, well, Mel, it's your turn.
Hi, okay. Hello, I'm Melissa, or MelVee. I go by either, so if you guys want to call me Melissa, you can call me Melissa, whatever you want to call me. I have been teaching for a little under I guess a little over a year now at this point, but my singing journey started billions and billions of years ago when the universe was first formed in the Big Bang. No, I'm just kidding. I was like 4 years old, and we lived in a very, very small house, and I would go in the backyard and pick flowers, and I would just sit there in the field of my flowers and be like, little daisy, little... like just make up little songs, like as a 4-year-old. It was like super cute. And as I started getting older, I started singing with my dad in karaoke shows. Like my dad used to run karaoke. My dad is a very talented country singer. If you guys ever want to look him up, go onto YouTube and look up Matt Wild, Wishing I Was Fishing, and watch that video because it's like one of his classics. But he's a really good country singer, and I looked up to him a lot when I was a kid. And I started school, and my teachers were like, you have a really pretty voice. You should try out for chorus. And I'm like, I'm scared. They're like, why? You would do so good. You should try out for chorus. So I tried out for chorus, and I made it into chorus. And I sang through chorus all the way from 3rd grade up until I graduated high school. Every single year I was in school chorus. Never got a solo part. I think it was because I just never was brave enough to try for a solo part. I was just like, I'm happy singing. I don't have to be, the center of attention. I just want to sing. It's fun. And honestly, like, my knowledge of what the voice was and how the voice worked was, like, next to nothing. I just sang because I liked to sing. And apparently I sounded good at it. So I was like, alright. So then I graduated high school. And my dad was doing more shows, and he was traveling the country as like a country singer, and it was fantastic. And then eventually he had to settle down because my parents split up, and it was this whole thing. He's like, I can't do it anymore. I gotta choose my family, so he chose us. But he was always telling me stuff like, you gotta engage your core. You gotta push with your diaphragm. You gotta do all this. I'm like, how does that work? And I'm like squeezing my belly and squeezing my abdomen to try to like force power into my songs, and it just didn't work. And it was just made me so frustrated because everybody else just seemed to like get it. They just like knew what to do, and I was like, how does this work? How are you guys doing this? So it just really got me like, I guess, depressed because everyone's like, you have a pretty voice, but you use more support, you gotta have more engagement, you gotta. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know how to do that. So I just kind of like stopped singing for like a good 3 or 4 years, like altogether. And then one day I was like 20 years old, and my old theater teacher from high school, she's like, hey, I'm doing a summer camp for kids, you should like come help me run it. And I'm like, oh sweet. So like I joined her for summer camp. She was teaching a bunch of like musical theater songs, and like had like a magic week for the camp for like magic tricks and stuff. It was really fun. I really loved it. But like the musical theater week specifically, I cannot speak, was just like this gear that just switched on my head, where I was like, I miss singing. Like, I miss it so much. I miss being able to just have fun and sing. And then she was, like, really challenging me to just, like, not care how I sounded and just sing because I wanted to sing, and not care how pretty it was or how light and, breathy it was. Just, like, just sing. Just sing from the heart and just have a good time with it. So I did, and I was like, I love this. I love this so much. I want to keep learning about this. So I started posting covers to YouTube, and I started going back out and singing karaoke again. And then I met my boyfriend, and we've been together for 5 years, and we moved a bunch of times, and it was just kind of hard to balance the singing aspect with everything else we were doing. But when I was 23, yeah, I joined a musical, 2 of them actually. I was in a production of Legally Blonde, which was so much fun. I was an ensemble, so I didn't get like a lead role or anything, and I wasn't expecting to. It was my first musical ever. If I got like a lead role my first musical, I'd be like, whoa. So I was an ensemble for Legally Blonde, and I did Annie with like a bunch of kids as well. And then after that, I kind of again just stuck to YouTube stuff, and then I was going on TikTok. I downloaded TikTok because everybody had TikTok, and this was last year. I downloaded TikTok. And I was just scrolling, looking at all these beautiful singers, and like, these people sound so amazing, I want to be like that. And then one day I came across Matthew Johnson, a lead singer, on TikTok. Wira, if you don't follow Matthew Johnson, go follow the lead singer on TikTok, he's fantastic. So, found him on TikTok, and he was just talking about the vocal folds, and like mixing, and like chest voice, and like all these terminologies that I've never heard of before. As a singer, someone who's been singing my entire life, I just didn't know what any of this stuff was. And I was like, what is this? So he's talking about this, he's like, if anyone wants voice lessons, let me know in the chat. And I was like, hi, what's up? It's me. So he's like, alright, cool. So we started doing voice lessons, and the number one thing I've learned from Matt is chest voice. Because I've always had a very, very light, thin mix. Like, that's been like very natural to me. I've never had like that powerful back behind my voice. It was always just this little kind of sound. So he's like, you gotta get your chest voice going. So he was drilling me with all these exercises in chest voice to try to give me some power. And at first it was like a, wow, hey, this is a very bright, rowdy, kind of yelling quality to my voice. And I hated it. I literally was like, Matt, why do I hate this? Why is this so ugly? I hate the way this sounds. I don't want to sing like this. He's like, we're just trying to get you the power. We're gonna shape the resonance. We're gonna fix the way it sounds. We're just trying to get the power, because you have, like, none. You need power. So I was like, alright, I'm trusting you. And I did. I was trusting him for quite a long time. And then over time, he's like, alright, you got power. Now we're going to start lowering your larynx, like, a lot. We got to get that brightness out of there and get your mouth slimmer, because it's going to be yelly. It's going to be shouty. So we were doing that for a while. And then finally, I'm just now getting comfortable with using more chest voice, with using more of a belty quality. Like, it's a little bit less and a bit more, yes, it sounds very, very nice. So, that was a thing. And then, after like 3 months of doing voice lessons with Matt, I was like, so like, if I wanted to like study anatomy, and like science, and like how this all works, how would I do that? He's like, oh, there's this great book. Book plug. Book plug. There's this great book called Sing Like Never Before by Justin Stoney. And I'm like, who the heck is Justin Stoney? He's like, go read the book. And I was like, okay. And I opened table of contents. I'm like, I'm gonna like this book. Because it was like these crazy names for chapters and stuff. And it was just really, really like interesting. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna like this book a lot. So I started reading, I started taking notes. I literally have a document of like 50 pages of just like notes from this book. Like, it was insane. And I'm like, this is so fascinating. And then like, one day I was with my friend and I'm like, hey, would you like to like maybe try to learn how to sing a little bit? She's like, sure. So I had no knowledge of exercises or of like, you know, like how the consonants and anything worked. I'm just like, here, we'll just sing on mum 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 mum, because like that's the most generic exercise in the universe. And we were doing stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to learn how to design exercises. I want to teach people. So I went back to Matt and I'm like, hey, if I wanted to be a voice teacher, how would I do that? And he's like, well, I'll teach you how to do that. And he taught me what formants were, and he taught me what like certain fricatives and vowels and consonants all did for exercises, and how I could start playing with interval patterns. And it was very basic information along with the stuff I already read in the book. So I was like, okay, this is cool. So I started teaching a few more people for free. At the time it was all free. I didn't charge anybody for these voice lessons. It was just because, you know, why not? It's fun. Let's just have fun. And then eventually I'm like, if I wanted to get like a certification to be like legit, like how do I do that? And he's like, I mean, I studied with MelVee. If you go to this website, you can sign up for the voice teacher training program. And I'm like, okay. So I did, and that was I started in May of last year with that, and I finished in August. And yeah, I learned so much stuff in that alone. Just those 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it was, how many weeks it was. I learned so much stuff in just that. and everything else I read in the book, and then with everything with Matt, and I'm like, I'm feeling pretty confident. I want to start teaching as like a job. Like I want to make this my thing. And he's like, yay, let's set up consistent mentorship sessions, and let's talk about how we can start a business and how we can start pricing these kinds of things and all that. And here I am today, a year later, teaching voice, learning new things every day. I never want to stop learning. Taking a distortion teacher program with Nicholas, and he's fantastic. And I just want to keep.
And I'm in it too.
And you are in it. Wise is also in the distortion program, and he's doing great too. So, yeah, here we are. And I'm really excited, and I'm really happy, and I'm feeling very fulfilled with my life. So I really am grateful.
Awesome. I would like to say for our new listeners here, I mean everyone's new because this is just starting, that formants, I wouldn't say formants are very basic, but yeah, it's one of those things where once you get it, it makes sense, but it's one of those things that you need to be in the right spot to understand what they are, because you don't think of things in that way most of the time. But I think voice teaching is about hearing differently and listening to things differently. You don't listen as a voice teacher. You're not listening to a thing based on like, do you like it or not? You're listening to it based on what is that guy doing and how can I produce that? And how can I get my singers to do that sound? Yeah, this is just a little thing I wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So thank you guys for sharing your stories. Do you guys have any questions for each other at all? Like, you guys want to ask each other any questions about your story or journey that we didn't really get to hear? Or do you want to jump into the next topic? Because I made a little document on stuff we can talk about during these sessions, because like I'm super organized when it comes to something.
Oh, wow. You know, I think part of why I have a lot of Justin is because I've just watched his videos and only his videos throughout my singing journey. So I've never actually watched any other vocal coach other than him. That's probably why. Yeah, really.
He is a master at what he does.
He's
But
very good.
yeah, there.
I feel with a lot of other voice teachers, I don't know, they make everything sound so pretty. It's like, oh, here's the exercise. And Justin's willing to be like, make sure you don't get loud. That kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay. It makes so much more sense. It's so accessible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
really
think-
explains things well.
Yeah,
That's
one
what
thing
I-
that's. Oh goodness,
Why
wait.
is
What?
Siri? Shut up, Siri.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
one thing that's really important as a voice teacher also is to be able to do negative demonstrations.
Yeah.
Because that is the default state, you know? You're not going to be singing nice all the time, as Melissa was saying as well. Like, and you can't get good at singing. There's that Adventure Time quote. The sucking at something is the first step at getting kind of good at something. You gotta be not good first. It's
Yeah.
about letting go of the weight, and same with Melissa. It's about being okay with not sounding great when you add on the weight, depending on where you are in your journey. It's such an individual thing. Yeah. To be honest though, I would like to go into what Melissa's topics are, because I think we've talked about ourselves quite a bit.
Yes.
So I want to jump right in.
Cool. So I wanted to ask you guys each individually, what is your favorite thing about teaching and your least favorite thing about teaching in general, voice?
Maybe Wira can go first.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my favorite thing is when students just get it. They have this face of utter joy, and I just can't. There's just, oh my gosh. It's hard to beat that feeling of seeing someone have that. Because my voice teachers have that feeling when I figure it out, and seeing that in other people is like, that's crazy. The least favorite thing, probably the no-shows. That's probably the worst thing. Yeah, there's nothing else. It's that. Why?
Yeah, I think in terms of the good stuff, okay, I'm gonna say the bad stuff because I think I'm gonna forget. The good stuff is very similar. The bad stuff for me is, I'm trying to remember what I was just thinking about, is when, let's say, I'm trying to teach someone, and he's new or she's new, and they have had a teacher, but that teacher is someone they've just started with. So then their idea of good teaching has been shaped by that teacher, even though they might not actually be getting the results that they want. And the thing is that you have to fight what they already have in their brain in order to like do anything productive, because they'll be like, yeah, I need to need to squeeze and everything to sound better, or I need to sing with the low larynx all the time for every single song. Easy come, easy go, that's just how you live. That kind of thing. So, but my favorite thing is very similar to what we were saying, but I'll put a different spin on it, which is that if they've been getting voice lessons for a very long time, and they've been realizing that they haven't been getting the results, so they've been singing for like 3 years, 10 years, whatever, and then they say, yeah, all my lessons have been teaching me about, support from the diaphragm, and I've been learning to breathe every single lesson. It's like the teacher has run out of things to teach when all they teach is, diaphragm and dynamics. Yeah, the two evil dies. Yeah, these two things that they teach you, they're dying. So for me, like, then I tell them, all right, let's start out. What I usually start out with is teaching them about what I call it is called laryngeal tilt, where I get them to just sing up higher without raising their larynx, without opening their mouths very wide, without squeezing. Just get that sensation in, and almost like most of the time, if they're already people who can sing generally in tune, what will happen is on the first lesson, I can't promise this will happen, but this tends to happen, is that they get their flageolet straight away, and they are able to get into the they're able to get into those notes first lesson. And when I get that, I'm like, whoa, wow, wow, and then cue the Twitch sound, and I'm like, because I start out quite methodically, and they are like, whoa, 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 whoa. In those 3 years of singing, I have never sung that high. Maybe they're not gonna sing that high. Usually they do, but when they do, they're like, whoa, and I'm like, yeah. And I had another one who they didn't sing that high, but there was a person who couldn't sing in pitch at all, and we did some slides, did some whatever. At first, his range in the beginning of the session was like 3 notes, literally like 3 notes, like and then that's like it. And then after that, he got to like an octave higher and slightly more. And I'm like, I know range isn't everything, but I think it's the first step to knowing that the possibilities are endless. Where, for me, I take it that your voice is the pitch, and then you add things on top of that. And for me, it's like seeing them achieve that in their usually first lesson is just like, wow, for me. Yeah, so very similar.
Can you do the
wow! I can't remember how it sounds. Like, I don't have an image in my head. Yeah. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So, over to you, Mel.
Cool. So, my favorite thing are these 3 words to the student. That was easy. Like, I love when I hear a student say, that was easy. And I'm like, yeah. So, because like whenever we're going up in their mix, and they're starting to their larynx is jacking up, and they're getting super bright, and they're like, it's so tight, it's so strained. I'm like, yeah, just have like a touch of a yawn, breathe in through a little bit of a yawn, kind of open that space a little bit, and then they'll do it, and they'll go up to the high note, and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, how did that feel? And they're like, that was easy, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, it was a lot. I love when the student says those words, that was easy, after we were doing an exercise and they put it back into context and they're like, yeah, that was easy. Yeah, I know, it's great. And then I also really love when the student, like you said, gets really, really high up in their range. Like, I love taking my students up in head voice. Lately I've been really challenging my male singers, because a lot of male singers in head voice, they get to a G, maybe a G sharp, and they're like, oh, that's so high. And I'm like, let's try a couple more. Let's see what happens. And then they'll get up to the A or even the B flat, and they're like, that's so high. I'm like, yeah, that is very high for for a male head voice, and then they just get like super excited. So like just stuff like that. Like I love seeing how excited they get when they like access something easier, or when they get higher on the range, or if they're like really struggling in a song to get like a belt note and they're like, I can't get it. I'm like, I bet you can, and we'll just say, hey, try calling it out. Like, hey, hey, and they're like, okay, hey, hey. I'm like, yeah, now put it back into the pattern. Hey, 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 hey. And all of a sudden they have that nice strong belty quality, and they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, how'd that feel? That was easy. Yeah, exactly. So I just love that. That's my favorite thing. And then my least favorite thing, probably inconsistency overall. Especially when you're building a business. And that goes for like any business, not even just voice teaching. When you're building a business from the ground up, the inconsistencies are wild. Sometimes you'll have people or students that are like, you know, always on time, always show up to their lessons, always pay when they're supposed to, and everything is great. And then you have like 3 weeks in a row where you'll have like 5 or 6 students just cancel like 2 days before, and it's just like, oh, okay. And it's like, so it's very, very hard to stay consistent, and then you lose students and you get new students, and then you lose students, and it's just very, very hard to stay in that realm of consistency. And then I guess another small thing that kind of like is not really, you know, detrimental, but kind of bugs me, is when students don't practice and they'll tell you straight up, yeah, I didn't practice at all. It's like, yeah, kind of need to do that if you want to see results. Like, it's very, very important to put whatever we're doing here in lessons into practice. We only see each other for like an hour, like a week, or an hour every other week if we're doing bi-weekly lessons. You gotta practice. So I guess those are my least favorite things. But for the most part, I still love what I do.
Yeah, I mean, for the practice thing, like, I get students to say, like, I didn't practice, but to be honest, I'm like, alright, then this is the practice, you know? Today is the practice. I mean, but of course you have to temper their expectations, because let's say for a piano lesson, you know, you're expected to practice. Like, no one bats an eye when you say you gotta practice for your piano lessons, but for voice lessons, it's not really as much of a thing, like, but I think it's fine because, you know, people have busy lives and stuff, and some people don't sing for the, what's it called? For the skill level. They're singing to get good enough that people don't, you know, said my story doesn't happen to them where people are laughing at them and all that. You know, they just want to get good enough. In reality, exactly what you said is correct. Deliberate practice is what you need in order to get results faster and go really far. You know, there's a fine balance though, I think, because as a voice teacher, you know, for me, I think for all of us here, we're quite self-motivated when it comes to the voice. We're like, alright, yeah, I just learned this cool new fry screen thing, I'm gonna practice it all day. Okay, no, maybe not all day, but I'm gonna practice it a lot and try to figure out and try to get it. And then like, and that's why we are where we are, but not everyone has that, you know, ambition or drive to become either a voice teacher or become a voice professional. Some people just love it, and well, I mean, yeah, we embrace all of those people, and I think even though it's Mel's least favorite thing, I think it's a reality we live with, because like we are there to take them along and, you know, get those singers to where they want to be fast. If they want to be anywhere, we get them there faster. You know, we get them in the most efficient way possible during the lesson. Afterwards, it's, you know, the horse to water, the tired phrase. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, yeah, we do our best, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like some people, I have a student, and they are so busy with school, and this person's also freelancing, so the only time they can sing is in the lesson. And sometimes what people are looking for is really just a place to sing, just to make a joyful noise, as Justin would say. And so I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them not practicing, even though their progress is just there, like just like adding one like tiny step. But yeah, I'm fine with that actually when people don't practice.
I am
So,
too,
yeah.
to a point. I think if the student really wants, like, if they come to me and they're like, I feel like I'm not making any progress, I'm like, did you
Yes.
practice? And they're like, no. And I'm like, did you have time to
That's
practice?
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
when it
different.
gets
Yeah.
that's when it gets a
That's
little
it.
bit like, well, if you want to make progress, you gotta put the work in, you gotta practice. And I completely understand if someone is like literally slammed and they just don't have time and they just want to come to sing, that's completely different. Like, it depends on what their goals are. If their goals are just to have a good time and come in and sing in a lesson, then great. That's totally fine. But if they actually want to, and they told me, I want to make some good progress, I want to become this kind of person in this amount of time, you gotta put the work in to do that. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta put the work in. And I know it's difficult for people with schedules, but even like 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes like 3 times a week
Yeah.
is better than not doing anything at all. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more about
I
the
mean-
situation, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've been like reading. I just finished this book, The Musician's Mind by Lynn Helding, which just talking about like motor learning and stuff and how it applies to singers, pianists, musicians in general. And what you're saying was like about expertise is that it's about not just knowing how to do the motion, or knowing what to do, but also getting that motion extremely consistent that you can just do it like on command. And I think the first voice lesson, there tends to be a huge spike in progress because the person had no idea what was going on at first and now they know what to do. But can they do that over and over and over again on command, on stage, while moving, in different circumstances? That requires deliberate practice,
Yep.
over and over again. And like, you can only get so much in a voice lesson when it comes to that, I think. Yes.
Oh yeah, McCoy talked about this. It was his last chapter. It was brain. That's literally the chapter. I was like, what?
McCoy? Was that a book? Is
Scott-
that...
Scott
Your
McCoy.
Voice,
Yeah.
Scott McCoy, Your Voice and Inside View 3. One of Justin's most favorite book of all time.
All
He
right.
promotes that book like crazy.
Yeah.
He does. It's funny.
Does he promote it more than his own book?
I mean, I don't think he's promoted his own book really like out loud at all in quite a while. Besides like the channel, like saying, "Hey, by the way, go get the book." But like he himself hasn't really talked about it since like the first like year it was out. Like I think he kind of just leaves it to like his social medias and like the people who create his videos to promote it for him. Like he doesn't really talk about it as much as he used to.
Yeah. Maybe we can move on to the next point that you have, Melissa, on your agenda.
Cool. What is your guys' favorite thing you've learned about singing or the voice in general, whether it be pedagogy, science, or just anything at all in general about the voice? What's your favorite thing you guys have learned?
This will require some thought.
That's
If
just
Wira
works
has
for
any-
me.
All right, yeah.
I have been so stuck. I just didn't think it was possible. I just never thought it was possible. Because in the baritone land, you want to get this tone all the way up as high as you can. And yes, the highest you can go is like E, F, and maybe G, like it peaks at G. And so I'm like, oh, okay, so it's just my voice type, and all these pop singers are doing it just because they're born tenors. Yeah, I get it. And then one day, one magical day, I just took it all the way up, and I'm like, huh? So yeah, and I'm still trying to figure it out. It's still a very much work in progress.
You know, I just wanted to comment on that. Like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about my least favorite thing, which is that people believe they have limits because of not just, maybe it's their voice teacher, or maybe it's their own self-imposed limitations because they've been singing for a very long time in that range with the I can't get up anymore, and then they're like, all right, so that's it, that's the cap. And I think I was talking to someone before, and he seems to be very into the voice science and all that, but I think he got into the dangerous mindset of it, which is thinking that, okay, I have a limitation, in my voice. I can't belt those high, I don't know, F5s, G5s in a pure mixed voice, because that guy is thinking like, I am a baritone. I'm tired of these tenors telling me that they can sing so high, and don't worry, you just gotta learn to do it. Because, I mean, it could also be like being jaded because other people might have tried to teach them but not known how to get them there. And then, when you try to learn, obviously it won't work because, I mean, it's the premise of my hypothetical, but eventually, because it doesn't work, then they make the association it will never work. And sometimes it's really luck that you stumble onto the people who know what to do to get you there. And sometimes it's different for each person, but the basics are very similar among everyone, I think. Yeah, and in terms of what my favorite thing is, it has changed over, each month or two that I'm in it. It's like my favorite thing is always the newest thing that I'm looking into. In the beginning, it was formants and stuff. Like, whoa, that's so cool. And then after that, it was after the voice teacher training course. It was like registration, which is the mixed stuff, and laryngeal tilt is one of my favorites. Learning that all your pitches, there's no limit to it, and you just gotta learn to control that cricothyroid muscle. And then Justin Stoney would just hit the piano right here with all the vocal jargon. But yeah, basically it's a muscle. You just train that, and then now, right now, like my favorite thing that I'm learning about is like twang. Twang and how the tongue contributes to that. And I think that's a huge part of Wira's sound, actually, because that is like your default sound. It's this twangy sound all the way.
I wake.
Yeah. And like even in the classical, you are applying that in a different way. So like that to me is like that's something that I feel like a lot of the old pedagogy books, including Practical Vocal Acoustics, get it wrong, because they interpret the singer's formant as something that's created by a convergent resonator, where you put your lips like this and then you put your tongue up high and stuff, as opposed to like spread divergent resonator. Yeah. But just looking at the videos of the sound, I think Carrie Obert presented a video on this on YouTube. She's, I think, an Estelle person, and she was showing videos of how opera singers are using their tongue, and that is responsible for one variety of twang. I think that where she might be missing in that one video, though maybe she has this view in other places, is that I think that twang is also, so she has split into two types of twang. One is the ring, which is the opera one, which is created by your tongue, and there's another, which is I think what Ken Bozeman calls the pharyngeal voice, where you're using the back wall of your whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. So there's your throat going in. So there's two ways to do it. And I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, or I don't think that like one is purely for twang, one is purely for the singer's formant. I think they can both be used for both. Sorry. I think the tongue twang can be used for both, and I think you can hear them both depending on where. Like now, I can't unhear it. I'm just listening to, because I listen to a lot of Japanese like anime music, and they sing with that tongue twang all the time. It's everywhere. And then they mix it in with the nasal resonance stuff that Justin always talks about, and then you get this weird blend of sounds. So right now, as I'm gushing about it, you can see this is my favorite thing right now. So I'm gonna stop there before I get too technical.
Why don't you demonstrate some of that?
Yeah, please.
Let me try think of one song. So there's a recent song from I think let me think of Kenshi. Yeah, I can't remember the lyrics, but there was this My Hero Academia, the story about like the superheroes in a school and with quirks and stuff. And there's a recent theme song that's na 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 sanayo senba nahuno datte tachigate miseru kara, like this wah 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 kind of sound, but my larynx isn't raising wah wah na 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 na. It's like my larynx, it's either neutral or barely raises at all, and but if you're using the other kind of twang where you're using your pharynx, it's like what's it called, like it's the exercise that I would always do. It's like, I'm not sure whether these are examples of two different things, because right now it's very hard for me to distinguish it in my own voice. But how I can tell that it's one or the other is, can you lower your larynx while you do the twang? If you can't, it is the pharynx wall one, because that one cannot be done without a high larynx. Like, it just doesn't work. But when you do things like, let's do like a opera kind of thing where you do You lower your legs.
Nessun dorma.
Yeah. You're so if you Nessun dorma is just with the low larynx, right? If you add in the Nessun dorma, Nessun dorma, like,
Dorma.
yeah. So it sounds like compression. Like it's like it feels like weight added to your voice. You know.
Yes.
Like so it's like you can confuse the things like compression, twang. They all sound so similar. They give very similar effects, and so it's like it's kind of hard to tell which is which sometimes. But I mean, have you seen like you know those laryngoscopes or whatever where they put down a scope down the opera singer's throat? You can see their epiglottis is foam. They consistently just goes whoop, and it covers their larynx. Like it's so consistent, and that the only way you can move your epiglottis like that is through your tongue. There's airy epiglottic folds and whatever, but they don't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And
so.
I have a feeling that the yawn helps with that as well, actually. But yeah, sorry. Yes, Melissa.
No, you're
Imagine
fine.
yawning like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just yawning with the tongue twang.
Yeah, that's super cool because like I know a lot of artists who have like a twang, but also it's like a dark twang. Like Jules Gold, one of my favorite artists right now. Her name is Jules Gold, and she does like a lot of like really like dark ah kind of sounds, but it's also kind of twangy at the same time. And I've been trying to figure out how the heck to like replicate that because it's both twangy and dark. It's like what's it called? What's that classical term? Bright dark? Was it something?
Chiaroscuro.
Yeah.
Chiaroscuro. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds very
Yes,
much
we were.
like a blend between bright and dark, but it's not neutral either. It's like I don't know what she's doing, but it sounds so cool, and I want to do it.
Oh, that sound. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just been. It's like more like an.
I think country singers use this. I was
Yeah.
listening to
Yes.
Yes.
Blake
We were talking
Shelton.
about this yesterday.
Yeah. We were-
Yeah.
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 I was
Yeah.
listening to Blake Shelton. He does that. He does that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
I think it's also helped by the fact that country singers they retract their tongue slightly. So they move their tongue back a bit, and that just facilitates the movement of that tongue root to
Yeah.
push back that epiglottis, you know? And I think it all like feeds into each other. So
Yeah. Maybe they just speak with the tongue twang already. Great.
But yeah, it's super cool. Thank you for telling me about that because it's like one of the things I'm going to continue to practice with to get that sound that I'm so desperately trying to replicate, and it's really, really cool to play with. Personally, I think my favorite thing that I've learned with the voice is distortions in general, and it's kind of crazy because I used to, like, you guys are really not believe me, but I used to despise, like, Screamo. Like, I used to absolutely hate it. I used to hate any kind of heavy metal, any kind of like hardcore rock. It used to make my ears just like hurt, and I was like, they're just literally screaming into a microphone. Like, how is this singing? How is this anything but just screaming? It's just it's not appealing at all. And then when I started studying with Matt, and he was teaching me about like the names of the distortions, just the names. So like these actually have like a name, like false fault. Hey, whoa, how you doing? What's up? And then epiglottic. Hi, how you doing? And then hi, how you doing? Kind of sounds like I didn't realize they were like named. I just thought it was all screaming. So he was telling me about this kind of stuff, and then I started looking into the anatomy of these things on my own before I even started the training with Nicholas. And I was just like, oh, this is actually a lot more complex than I thought it was. And I remember whenever Justin was teaching us like the basics about distortions, I was literally sitting there in the Zoom call like this. Just like staring him dead in the face with my fingers like tapping together. And like at one point he's like, I can see somebody like sitting there in the audience excited about this kind of thing, and I was like, yeah, guilty as charged. So then he's like, yeah, we're starting a distortion course in the winter probably, and I was like, yeah, tell me more about this, I want to do this. And then Nicholas has taught us so much that I didn't know. Like, I knew what false fault was, and I knew what fry was, and I knew what epiglottic was, but I didn't know the intricacies about how they really worked until I started studying with Nicholas, and he was like explaining, because I always thought death metal growls, like those really deep, grumbly, ooh kind of sounds, were all arytenoid based, because that's what Matt had taught me. He's like, yeah, those are arytenoid distortions, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I went with Nicholas, he's like, no, those are false fold distortions. I'm like, really? Fascinating. And then like he showed us like the scope videos of like all these distortions and all these sounds, and I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. So I was telling Matt, I was like, hey, do you know that death metal growls actually use more false folds than they do arytenoids? He's like, really? I don't buy that. And I'm like, okay. So I asked Nicholas, I'm like, can I show Matt one of the videos from the training? He's like, yeah. So I showed Matt, and Matt's like, really? I'm like, yeah, like, there's hardly any arytenoid involvement at all. It's mostly false fold. And then I showed him the one with the arytenoids. He's like, I think the arytenoids make it more aggressive, though. I'm like, yeah, probably. That's pretty accurate. So, just stuff like that. And then Fry Scream, like, Matt had always taught me that, this is already a Fry Scream! And it's technically not. It's more like a pre-Fry Scream. And then the Scream part is when you start adding the false fold on top of it. So just like all these things I've been learning, and it's just making me super invested. I'm listening to like Avenged Sevenfold, I'm listening to like System of a Down, I'm listening to like all these metal groups that I always thought were like super annoying, and I'm just like, give me more, give me more. I'm just like super excited to learn about it. So that's my favorite thing I think I've learned so far about voice in general. It's just distortion stuff.
You know, on that arytenoid thing, I just came from like a 7 km run earlier, and I was like looking for things to listen to during the run, because otherwise I'd get really bored. And I was listening to a podcast that had like 76 views or something, but I think this is where all the good information is on YouTube. That's why it's so hard to find. It was Singing Revealed. I can't remember the guy's name. Philippe. I know his name's not pronounced Felipe, but I always pronounce it Felipe something. And he was talking with a distortion person. I think this video is 2017 or a few years ago, and they were talking about growls, or like like they were thinking that as arytenoid distortions, and they were saying it's similar with, you know, I think this is like probably Justin's line of thinking at the moment as well, but like, you know, where the arytenoids and the epiglottic, the arytenoid versus the epiglottic like they sound they sound like so similar. And I think the idea back then is that they are all like the same vibrations from the arytenoids. And then you see when we join like the distortion course, you can see that maybe not, but maybe they could be. It depends on each person. Maybe someone is making like with the arytenoids, and maybe others are with the false folds. You know, it's like the thing is that science is changing so fast in the distortion world, because it's very hard to get 1,000 people who can do false fold screams and then do studies on them. So I mean, that's my opinion. I'm speaking off the cuff here.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's the problem that vexes most singing science in general as well, which is that if you read all the studies, right, all of them are like 5 people, or like at most 16 or like 30 people. And it's like, and these are all the people who trained at the highest level in a university or something for classical music. And so everything comes kind of with the bias, I think. Or it's the sample size is not fully representative. So I think there's a lot of things that can change. And one thing that the guy was saying in the podcast was also like, vocal fry, if you look at each person's vocal folds in a scope, it seems to change with each person. Like, everyone does vocal fry slightly differently. So, and it kind of makes sense, because if you try it with your lips, like that kind of thing, like you can vibrate your lips here and here, or like on the right side and left side, or the middle, or the inside, or you can do it by clasping your vocal folds, your lips tightly, or your vocal folds tightly, or you can have them just like kind of be doing their own thing, but kind of irregular. So it's like, voice science it's amazing, but it's also limited in a lot of ways as it stands now. And I think, like, as Nicholas tells us also, these are case studies. Like, you know, we get one person's scope and we're like, whoa, what's that? And like there's that awesome scope of Will Ramos. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the vocalist, you can see it on YouTube. It's like all his distortions have been like epiglottic, like twist kind of thing. It's like everything, the arytenoids just like smash each other and like do some weird asymmetrical vibration. and he seems fine. His vocal folds are completely fine. They're like totally pristine. So it's I don't know. So when people tell me, oh, maybe this one is this distortion, and so yeah, maybe. I don't know. Could be. It's probably not, but it could be. It just, we just need more evidence, especially in this part of vocal pedagogy land.
I think that goes for like pretty much all pedagogy too, not even just like distortions. Like pedagogy in science is always evolving. There's always new studies and new research being found in all these things. So, like we're learning new things every single day, and then like a week from now, a month from now, we're gonna learn something completely different, and that's totally fine. And there's no point in saying that this is a fact and it's always gonna be this way, because it's not. Like we can't ever say that. But it's still really cool to like explore these topics, and really cool to like dive into what happens when things change and what discoveries we made. And I just want to go to an ENT. I just want to go to an ENT and just get scoped so desperately, just to see my own chords at work and see how that kind of stuff works myself. Because man, oh man, I think anatomy is probably one of the coolest parts of like studying the voice, is like seeing the folds in action. Like endolaryngoscope is like so freaking cool to me now. I think it's one of the coolest things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Wira, you got any thoughts on this stuff?
No, I'm just enjoying it.
Gonna snatch you in right there.
I'm just enjoying this. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's the
I think there's a lot of.
For today.
Oh, that's. Then I mean, I guess we can keep going. Yeah, because I mean, I think. Oh wait, I'd love to talk about fry screams, but this is an introductory podcast.
Yeah.
I just realized. Yeah, this is. Yeah, maybe.
I like how the introductory podcast is all just going all into the deep waters, man.
We'll get more into like the nuances of like how certain things work, and kind of like go from like a voice teacher perspective for our viewers, I think, in the coming weeks. I just wanted to get like a groundwork of where we all came from, what our favorite things are about stuff, and then we can kind of like go into like, here's how breathing works, here's how the larynx works, here's how formants work in like other podcasts. But I just wanted to get like an introduction and like just like a hey, this is who we are and what we love, and go from there. But I think those are the topics I had for today. I really want to try to get Nicholas on here at some point. He already said he would love to do it with us, so I'd love to get him on here. And then I would love to get Izat on here, so we can do the fry screen stuff in a session, just geek over fry screen. And then at some point down the road, I have a lesson with Justin today. I'm going to actually ask him about this and be like, hey, we're doing a podcast. Do you ever want to come on our podcast? And see if he'd be willing to like chat with us and just hang out. So I'll talk to him about that today in our lesson. But I think we're going to have a great time with anything. And if you guys ever have any ideas, let me know. I have a document. I'll share it with you guys. You guys can add to it or like suggest things, and we can kind of collab. But this is going to be great, and I'm really excited to take this forward and see where it goes. So thanks, guys, for chatting.
It's a lot of fun.